This is the weekly Health Law News Nugget from Southern Health Lawyers. I'm Rich Sanders.
And today, the News Nugget for May 18th, 2018 focuses once again on the President's speech last week, the promises to reduce drug prices in America. The Secretary of Health and Human Services, Azar, was around the country this week giving speeches to continue to promote the President's blueprint for reducing drug prices and defending the President against critics who claimed, starting last week when the President gave his speech in the Rose Garden, that although it was 44 pages long and although it included a lot of detail that the President focused on in his campaign, it had nothing new to offer and didn't particularly change the game plan for true reduction of drug prices around the country. Now, the President and Secretary of Health and Human Services, Azar, are very defensive about this, claiming that ultimately the devil will be worked out in the details of the blueprint and that drug prices will in effect be reduced. So we turn to Wall Street, as we so often do on the News Nugget, talk about what's going on Wall Street, talk about what's going on in Washington, to see how the President's speech impacted drug stocks and the indexes for biotechnology and pharmaceutical based companies. Those indexes, according to Wall Street Journal and other sources, all went up as a result of the President's last week, some as many as 2% across the board on the biotech and pharmaceutical indexes. And individual stocks for drug companies also went up. Although there was a dip after the President began speaking, by the end of his speech and certainly carrying on into this week, drug prices went up for Merck, Amgen, and Gilead and other large pharmaceutical manufacturers. So Wall Street looked at the blueprint and heard the President's speech and decided it was all good news for drug companies. Now, as we talked about in last week's Health Law News Nugget, the President sent a lot of negative language and rhetoric towards the so-called middlemen that were continuing to get rich and that were ultimately, their days are numbered in terms of high profits. But even those that are middlemen on Wall Street appear to do very well, with both CVS and Express Scripts having increases in their stock prices Friday afternoon and then on into this past week. So if Wall Street is any indication, then the President's blueprint for reducing drug prices either is ultimately going to be a good thing for pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical manufacturers and those indices that include biosimilar manufacturers, or is going to be so long-term that it's not going to have any immediate impact on the revenues and success of those drug manufacturers. So who knows where this is all going to be sorted out. I think there's going to be a lot more policy development from Washington going on in the focusing on reducing drug prices. And of course, Wall Street is always going to give us feedback on how ultimately those new policies are going to affect the financial performance of drug manufacturers. Thanks for watching this week. We appreciate it. I'm Rich Sanders with Southern Health Lawyers. Have a great week.